Welcome, everybody, to another Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And yes, you notice there's only two of us on here. Cole's having the day off, but I'm here. I'm James Price, along with my buddy Rob. He's on this side. And we got a ton of things to talk about. Recapping the Phillies series. Talk about the bullpen, which is quietly one of the worst things on this team. Stat Genius on the farm. Previewing the Twins series coming up this weekend. Lots of things to talk about. Let's get this thing rolling.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
First thing I want to bring up, Rob. What a whirlwind of a couple days.
Oh, yeah.
Bud? You get your teeth kicked in, 10-1 by the Phils. And then yesterday afternoon, a 5-3, pretty nice win. I mean, The offense showed up. Bassett was good. The bullpen didn't fall apart and die.
Yeah.
And they got a win.
Yeah, absolutely. The summer's saved, Pricey. Like, we got a big win against the Phillies. We split the series. The big bad Phils that came in here winning 7 straight and looked unbeatable, and their offense teed off Jose Barrios, the one guy who we all thought really highly of this season. A season that's been, let's just be honest, good news has kind of come at a premium. It looked pretty bleak there, but yeah, it was nice to get a win. Nice to split that series. All you could have asked for. We talked about it coming in. They got a game. That's huge.
Yeah, most definitely. And let's start with Jose Barrios, because obviously we kind of knew going into that game that the matchup wasn't all that favored for him, and it all showed. I mean, 3 2/3, 7 hits allowed, 8 runs, all were earned, obviously capped off by a grand slam from Bryce Harper, and that's just obviously a gut punch when you go down. It's 8-0 in the fourth. I mean, God, they were down 3-0 after 2 innings, and with this offense, it pretty much feels like Barrios has to be perfect, but even then, it's probably still curtains. And they only scored 1 in the game, 1 run on 6 hits. What'd you see from Barrios in that outing? Are you concerned about the outing at all, or is it just blip in the road for Jose?
I would say that it was a little expected, if we're being honest. Like,
Sure.
based on all the underlying numbers, I think I've mentioned it on this program earlier this season that Jose Barrios, who's, by the way, even after that start baked in, still having a terrific season for your Blue Jays, has been, like I mentioned, one of the few bright spots this season.
Yeah.
There were some little discrepancies in his projected numbers that suggested that even though he had an ERA close to 1, yes, you guessed it, shocker, it was going to go up at some point. He was due for a bad start, and it just felt like a Phillies team that's red hot, that has a bunch of lefties that just crush righties, crush guys. They've crushed everybody this season. Let's be honest. That's a legitimate World Series lineup there. You just felt like he was due for one, and you mentioned there that the grand slam by Bryce Harper topped it off. They didn't need that. That 2 runs was enough to beat the Blue Jays, as it usually is, especially if they fall down early. Am I concerned? I would say. So there's two ways I look at it. Like, we talked about him being an ace this season, and based on the peripherals, yes, he's been very good, but maybe like there's some non-ace stuff in there. Like, there's the strikeouts still aren't there. There's still a lot of hard contact. Projected ERA still feels pretty high. So from that aspect, yeah, I'm a little concerned that our projection will come true, that he'll be an ace, despite that his numbers are still terrific. But am I concerned that he'll be his floor, which is a solid number 2, 180 innings, 32 starts, 115 to 120 ERA plus? No, I'm not concerned. I still have utmost confidence that Barrios will at the very least be very good for the Blue Jays this year. Will he be great though? I think got to start missing a little more bats. I think we got to see that from Jose Barrios.
Well, you mentioned that. I mean, 47 1/3 innings pitched, 38 Ks, right? And for a guy who's supposed to be a front of the line starter, it's obviously not there. And you mentioned the 1 ERA is not going to hold up. Literally, with that one start, it doubled almost. It was 144 going into play, and doubled would be 288. It's 285 after that game a couple days ago. So that was pretty rough all around. But let's go to the offense, and we're going to strictly talk about that game because Bo Bichette is in the 5-hole. Meanwhile, Danny Jansen's hitting 7th. And it did change, obviously, in game 2 of the series. And shocker, good things happened when you put your best hitters higher in the lineup.
Yes.
Danny Jansen at 5th, had a double, ended up scoring a run, was great in game 2. If you want to just strictly talk about game 2 offense, because I mean, look, they
Yeah.
finally made a little bit of an adjustment moving your hot hitter up. But what do you think about why it took so long?
So to move Bo Bichette down, you're asking?
Sure, anything. Jansen up, Bo down, Schneider up,
Yeah.
all of the above.
I will say we talked a lot about how your top three hitters, your top three, not your
Yeah.
actual top lineups. That's the lineups now different, but like obviously George Springer, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, your top three hitters, the guys that have been on the most talk this season. They all had good games. They 5 for 14. George Springer, he looked like he had a pulse. He had a hit, stole a base, made that nice catch, which really, by the way, changed the momentum of that game. That looked like it was going to get ugly real quick on Chris Bassett. The bases loaded. It was it Harper at the plate? Harper at the plate with the
Well,
bases
it was
loaded?
bases loaded, nobody out, and you had
Nobody out, yeah, yeah.
Schwarber, Real Muto, and Harper coming up in a
Right,
one nothing
exactly.
lead.
Exactly. And then George Springer makes that catch, gets a big out. They ended up scoring on a sac fly, but that was all they would get that inning. And
Yeah.
that was massive there. And obviously Vlad, 3 hits. We're gonna talk about him a little bit later on, how he's kind of
Yep.
put together a nice little stretch here. And Bo, finally, you got huge go-ahead RBI single there, put them up 2-1. They never look back. It just goes to your stars. Like I mentioned all season long. This team's going as far as their stars will take them, and their stars performed for really the first time what seemed like all season collectively in the game. All of them putting together nice efforts, and that's what it's going to take to beat a team like the Phillies. Massive win. I think that's my go-to. We can talk about more specifics and lineups if you want, but to me, that's what really stood out. Your best players were finally your best players.
100% agree. I could not agree more. I think Vladdy's number, something along the lines of his like last 9 or 10 games, got an OPS over 900, albeit a crap load of singles, but who the hell cares?
Stat genius.
Numbers.
Genius.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did this again. That's 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 days in a row.
You're good.
But
You're good.
regardless, the approaches at the plate in that game were massive. Seeing Vladdy absolutely dismantle 2 hanging curveballs. I mean, look, and people will be like, well, yeah, hanging breaking balls, you're supposed to do that to them. But how many times this year have we seen those pitches get fouled off, or Vladdy takes a big time swing and it fouled into the seats, and you're like, oh, just missed it. And we're like, yeah, just missed
Pop
it.
up, yeah, exactly.
Haven't heard that one before, right? But he was ripping balls, and he hit one like 100 was 113 point something off the bat, and then 115 the next time. Made them pay for mistakes, and then he got a little squibbler because he was feeling good about himself. But you know what? He ran out of the box, no bucket in hand.
Hustle. That's what happens when you hustle.
It's beautiful. It really was, and I think Bo Bichette, boy, he needed that. Boy, he needed that. I know it's only 1 hit, and he was 1 for 4 in the ball game, but a big moment and a big hit. I think, and that's the thing Blue Jay fans have to realize, and I think it's very hard for them to realize. This team is not 15. This team is not 16. They're not going to lead the league in home runs. It's just not going to be their offense. Their offense is get a walk here, get a single, because I think they had 5 singles in that inning. You know, and they scored 3 runs, but it took 5 hits for you to get it. So that's the sort of offense this team is going to have to do. And look, Davis Schneider has been awesome. Like, again, he's getting red hot. He's hitting, what has he got now? Hitting 275 with a 383 OBP.
OPS like way over
850. 858. Yeah. I mean, he's been awesome. Jansen's just mashing the baseball since he's come off the IL. It's looking more promising. It really is. But the one thing that I want to ask you about, and I know you mentioned lineup construction. I think we all know where we're going with this one.
Yes.
We talked about this last time on the pod, but it has to be brought up again because nothing has changed. George Springer. I mean, 1 for 5 with a run scored in the finale. Sure, fine. But in the end, we're watching him strike out to start ball games and strike out to start innings on pitches that you should probably be crushing. And he's swinging right through them. I mean, you could put anybody else in the leadoff role. I mean, that's what we talked about last time, right? Davis, Ernie, anybody. So I don't think it's going to happen now. I mean, I think I'm at the point where I don't think George is leaving the leadoff hole until, God forbid, something crazy happens.
And it's just weird because it's if there's one thing I'll give John Schneider is that he's shown a willingness to change his ways. He's not shown like a default bias and keep guys in their order. Like Bo Bichette, we saw Bo Bichette not just this time, but back in 2022 when he was struggling, he got off to that miserable start. He moved him down to the 7 hole and obviously caught fire near the end of the season. And George Springer, like we saw it literally with George Springer a year ago, where he was struggling in August, and they moved him, I think, to the 5 hole, and they moved Whit Merrifield, who we got to see in this series, back up to the 1. So it's just very curious to me how John Schneider has shown a willingness to be more than willing to move guys up and around the order. Dalton Varsho hitting 2 now. Looks like whenever there's a righty on the hill,
Yeah.
Danny Jansen still hitting near the bottom, but you can expect him to move up. Justin Turner's hitting 3rd now. So we haven't really seen John Schneider be married to a specific structure of an order. The only constant has been, for some reason, this season when George Springer has looked awful. Last season, at the very least, when you move George Springer down, he was still putting up league average offensive numbers.
Yeah.
Whereas now he looks like a complete black hole at the plate. Like he's just a complete liability hitting in the top of the order. And we saw in that first game, they gave up a couple runs, first couple innings. Your 8th and 9th hitter get on. Now's your chance to get back in this game. Sanchez for the Phillies, good pitcher. Obviously, there's some stuff to like there, but he's not Zach Wheeler. It's not Aaron Nola. You know what I mean? Like he's not a guy that you can just throw up your hands up and say, "Oh, we got beat by an elite pitcher." Like that's still a guy that you should have a pulse against. And he goes up there, hits a double play, kills the rally. They never really had another. You never felt like they had another shot the rest of the game after that. So I just don't understand why exactly now's the time that John Schneider is not willing to move George Springer down. And to me, I just don't get the argument, because the rebuttal you hear is that, oh, he'll make a fist about it, like throw a hissy fit about it. He'll get upset about it. He won't. To me, it's just I don't know where they're getting this information. Obviously, whoever is I think Jeff Blair mentioned it, how George Springer was not happy about moving out of the 1.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, George Springer's been in the league for 10 years. He's a guy who's had a terrific career. He's made a 9-figure contract. He's made multiple All-Star teams. He's won a World Series. Granted, well, we all know how that went down, but we don't have to relitigate that. It just feels weird to me how a guy who's been in so many big pressure-packed moments would just not be willing to accept it, that all of a sudden, hey, you're still going to be in the lineup. You're obviously the highest paid player on this roster. You're going to get your opportunities. It's just that right now, it's just not what's best for the team. Like we mentioned, there's so many other guys they can point to. Look at the charts. Look at the data. All these guys can produce a better output than you hitting at the 1. Hitting at the 1's valuable. You saw it. You're going to have so many opportunities. It's the most at bats you're going to get per season. It's just basic math. And giving it to a guy who has an OPS starting with a 5, it just, for an offense that's already really struggling, it just really, it feels illogical. It feels illogical all across. And whoever needs to make that call needs to do it, because there's really no data that suggests George Springer hitting number 1 is the answer.
No, definitely not. I mean, you mentioned his OPS in the 5s. It's 574. It's just awful. And we're watching IKF have a 652 OPS, just to put into perspective what's going on here, right? It's not fun to watch.
When you say anyone, you literally mean anyone. Like IKF, the guy who
literally IKF could lead off.
Black hole. Yeah.
Literally IKF could lead off, and you'd be better than what George is giving you right now, which is nuts to even think about. Yeah. It's crazy. Let's get back to the positive stuff, because they did win a ball game yesterday. And you mentioned earlier Chris Bassett. Boy, this guy is good. I mean, I know the numbers aren't spectacular this season, and we looked at it, right? On the pod post game, God forbid, I was on that 10-1 loss. I'm like, Bassett on the road against that Phillies lineup with all those lefties, this might be ugly. And it was anything but for Chris Bassett. 6 1/3, 3 hits allowed, 2 runs. One was, God, I mean, he somehow got out of that with only 1 run allowed. And the other one was the sac fly he gave up, but he wasn't even on the mound for it. It was Zach Pop allowing the sac fly. Right. And he's 6 Ks, 2 walks. He was brilliant in that game when this team desperately needed a win. I think is even an understatement to exactly say what they needed yesterday afternoon. What were your thoughts after that game, or more or less after Bassett's start yesterday?
He's, and for the people who are very quantifiable, they want numbers, they want data. He's just a gamer, man. Just to go on, just not even going into the numbers. You look at the numbers, you look at the Baseball Reference. Obviously, the last few years, how good he's been, but this year, he doesn't profile as a very good starter. And we've seen he's had his bad starts. Obviously, that Dodgers one is the one that sticks out, but you just feel a sense of comfort with him on the mound. You just feel a sense of he's never going to get rattled, even when he doesn't have his best stuff. He's going to work through it. And that was a perfect example. He did look pretty good over the course of the game. It was just really that one inning that doors kind of caved in on him a bit, but he minimized the damage. That looked like a death blow. That third inning there, I believe it was the bottom of the third, bases loaded with a top shop. That's a 3-4 run inning for a basic circumstance. So yeah, I think Chris Bassett, you feel confident with him on the mound, regardless of how his numbers look. He doesn't throw the hardest. He doesn't strike a bunch of guys out. He doesn't have the most, you look at him, he's not an intimidating figure on the mound. He's sluggish and looks like he's gonna puke every time he steps on the hill. He gets the job done, man. And to me,
Yeah.
I thought of this on the spot. I never actually given some thought. Maybe I like to retract it a bit, but he's
Go for it.
not what they were hoping out of Tanner Roark, but like the 99th
True.
percentile Tanner
Yeah.
Roark outcome, where it's just like
Okay.
it's a guy who just goes out there, he gives you a ton of innings, and he just battles. Even though the profile doesn't have the greatest stuff, but he just battles. You like him. You like to see those types of guys on your roster.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you mentioned earlier about how dude he's never phased. And I want to ask you, Rob, like if you had to picture one of the toughest situations in regular season baseball, other than like late September, need to win a game, and it's like this. In Philly, bases loaded, nobody out, those three coming up to the plate. I mean, that's one of the hardest things you could have put yourself into. He walked two, and then they tried to bunt the guy over, but that didn't work. And then they did say, I'll just hit a single as well. That's what 7, 8, 9 guys got on. And then you decide, then you get at the rest of the guys and keep your team in the ball game, which was crazy. I mean, it's one of the hardest things I think you could probably do against one of the toughest lineups in baseball. And he got out of it, and the Blue Jays countered with 3 runs in the 6th inning, which propelled them to a victory. It's beautiful. It really was great, Rob. It really
is.
was.
It is. I think like he's the type of guy who, just because of the stuff there, he's not like a Yusei Kikuchi. He's not a Kevin Gausman, even a Jose Barrios. We all acknowledge that he's not the type of guy who's going to be you on talent. But yeah, when the shit hits the fan, like that's the guy that you want. Like we mentioned, and obviously it's not pertinent now. But what I liked the most about Alek Manoah when he came up is that even though he didn't have his best stuff, you just felt like he could just battle through stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, like that's obviously gone the wayside now. But that's Chris Bassett personified. And I think if you're a Blue Jays fan, having him as your 4th starter, no, you're thrilled with it. You're thrilled. He was a regression candidate for me coming in, and even though the numbers would suggest that, I still feel confident. When he gets the ball, I'm confident that the Jays have a shot to win that day.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Now, Rob, as much as I would love to feast on one victory and a good one at that,
it's just one win.
It is just one win, but we do got to talk about a glaring issue that's been at the forefront of this team all year long. For the most part, it was a strength of theirs last year. They had roles, they had guys they can go to and leverage, and we're going to talk that bullpen because that thing it's one of the worst in baseball.
I have numbers if you want. I have numbers exactly right here.
Well, it's not part of Stat Genius, is it? Because I don't want to say anything otherwise.
No, not part of Stat Genius. It's
completely.
completely.
But take her away, buddy. Let's see what you got.
Bullpen, Blue Jays bullpen. How bad have they been actually? Well, 30th in Fangraphs. We're coming into yesterday. 30th in ERA, 30th in home runs allowed, 29th in strikeouts, tied for 25th in WHIP. Now there's a 5-way tie for 25th, so they're technically also tied for 21st at the same time. But regardless, not good. Bullpen's not good, Pricey. Like it's not. It's people will. I get baseball is a type of sport where you only really watch your team. It's a regional sport. You don't have time to invest more hours into baseball after watching your team 3.5 hours a night. And we all know the eye test of Blue Jays bullpen has been bad. It's very, very much accurate according to the numbers. There has not been a bullpen worse according to these numbers.
Yeah. And you think about, I think Blair and Barker usually use it. It's like the trust tree of John Schneider.
Trust. I've heard that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Any of those. I mean, who the hell's there other than Jimmy Garcia, who hasn't pitched in like 2 weeks because of a back issue that he's been dealing with, hasn't pitched since that meaningless game against the Dodgers, I believe, that he hopped into. Was it that one? Yeah, no, that was a 3-1 win. Excuse me. He pitched in that.
Okay,
game.
Good. So yeah, it's very meaningful.
So thank God they actually used him in a good spot there. But he hasn't pitched since April 28th. Now they haven't put him on the IL, which is weird because he hasn't pitched.
So John actually mentioned he was asked about after the game yesterday. He said that their hope is that he'll be back by tomorrow.
Right.
He did say he's feeling better, so it appears though they'll avoid an IL stint, at least.
So other than him, now I know people like the dumb stats, and I'm going to use the dumb stat as an ERA because you love it, and the casual fans love the ERA, just regular ERA stat. And I'm going to rip through the bullpen, and let me know if you trust these guys. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, Rob, if you trust them. Genesis Cabrera, an ERA of 5.79. Yeah, no good. Jimmy Garcia, we obviously know, massive thumbs up. When healthy, Chad Green. Yeah, I'd give him a thumbs up as well. You get a little bit of Tim Mesa. Well, we know your thoughts on Tim Mesa, Rob. That's a tough one. ERA just under 7 for Tim Mesa. Nate Pearson, where are you at on him?
I'd say like middle, but like more down.
Okay.
Yeah.
ERA of
Do I
5.11.
trust him to just give you like a week or two a good stretch? But like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
the long-term option, no way. No,
That's
no,
why when
no
people
chance.
were absolutely baffled that he got sent down to AAA, he's now got an ERA of 5.11, has 7 walks in 12 and a third innings. It's been no good for nasty Nate. Zach
Nasty Nate.
Pop, where are we at? I mean, in 4 and 2/3, he's looked
We'll
good, but
see. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, hey, he's looked good.
right.
He pitched his first like really real leverage outing yesterday. He looked pretty
Yeah,
good.
look,
So
he did. He
we'll see.
definitely looked good.
Yeah.
ERA of sub 2, but it's 4 and 2/3 innings. Who the hell cares?
Yeah.
Trevor Richards. I mean, I'm going to give right in the middle as well. ERA of
Maybe a little swinging
3.18.
up, a little bit towards the
3.18
strikeouts.
ERA in 17 innings of work. I mean, it's fine. Just you never really trust him. And then the two boys who anchored the back end of the bullpen last season, Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson. I mean, Romano in a save situation. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Romano in a 1-run situation. Yeah. 3 runs? No, not a chance. Makes you sweat like crazy. And the
He
Swan
did
Dog.
yesterday.
And the Swan Dog, Eric Swanson. I mean,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, what version am I going to get? Like right now, obviously, it's a thumbs down, but yeah, there's still hope. I know I was pessimistic about him. I said on the last show that I do think that saying papering it over with is just a slow start. I think that's little optimistic. I do think that there's some red flags, but I do think that we have actually seen him. He's not a Nate Pearson or a Zach Pop, and unknown. Like, we have seen him be good before, so I do think he's got that working for him.
so bottom line, what we've come out of this little section of the pod with one thing. The two guys that you trust are hurt. And that's just where we're at here, Rob. Like nobody else we trust in this damn team to come out of the bullpen. And your offense stinks. So
Yeah, I will say that I think that's an underrated thing. Whereas, like back in
it is.
2021, you remember when the Blue Jays bullpen literally catapulted their season like that. They had that awful stretch there in the middle of May to the All-Star break, really, where the bullpen was just blowing a game every week. Like they were losing a game every week that they shouldn't have lost because of their bullpen. That bullpen really had nobody. It was Jordan Romano and then nobody else. This bullpen, it's not. I don't think it's quite as dire. I do think that. Well, obviously we don't know exactly how the health of these guys are going to go. Like Jimmy Garcia, in theory, should be back tomorrow. That's what we've heard. How effective will he be? Because we've seen like the problem is that I'm sorry, but the Jays training staff for whatever reason like something's off this season. Whereas Eric Swanson and Jordan Romano, we came back. We all said that they're not ready. They don't look ready. Eric Swanson and Jordan Romano. I said that right. Yes. So when they came back, they didn't look great. Chad Green, if you remember that distant Wednesday against the Yankees when they could have gone for the series sweep and he apparently wasn't available, it's like, it's not a big deal. By the time on this road trip, he'll be back. That's been 3 weeks ago. And the last report we heard was that he's long tossing. So not even like throwing off a mound, not even no rehab assignment. So it's like, how do you go from day to day to like now all of a sudden coming up on a full month of injury? Like that just seems odd to me. So those two guys, Jimmy Garcia and Chad Green, both of which have been very effective this season when they've been healthy. I don't know how they're going to look like when they come back because if this season is any indication, is that we don't know exactly how these Blue Jays pitchers look when they're ready. What for whatever reason, there seems to be a misalignment on what it actually means to be ready, and the fact that Jimmy Garcia hasn't pitched in over a week now, almost like 10 days without an IL stint, like for whatever reason, like it just doesn't seem like they know what's going on. If that's the case, right? Like, how are you day to day for over a week? And you could have had another reliever up here helping you while he's on the IL, and you just had a dead roster spot really for the last week and change, and the bullpen that's really on fumes. So I'm not really sure what to expect. I do think that there is enough talent in this pen to be decent, but they're anything but right now.
definitely. And I mean, I didn't finish off the ERA numbers because they were pretty freaking bad. But
Yeah.
Jordan Romano, an ERA of 4.70 in 7 and 2/3. And we all know what Jordan
85
Romano,
ERA plus.
yeah, no good.
So below
Yeah,
average.
it's no good. And Eric Swan, do I even do this? All right. ERA of 15.5 in 6 1/3 innings pitched, 11 earned runs in 6 1/3 innings for Eric Swanson, 4 home runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings, which is
Hard to do, man.
crazy. It is very hard to do. I mean, that is tough. Edwin Jackson, Blue Jays edition, couldn't have done that. I mean, that's that bad. That's that bad. Now, Rob, I know you have some stats cooking up for us, and I believe it involves the 2021 ML MVP finalist. So let's see what you got, buddy.
Perfect. So we got a little bit of a preview, a little on how good Vlad Jr. has been. Last 10 games specifically, that's the exact sample I used. You mentioned it, Pricey, hitting 350 on base of over 400, a 909 OPS, only 44 plate appearances, but we talked ad nauseum how the top of the order, it needs to be better. Not only does it need to be better, it's going to be better by law of averages because there's just too much talent for them to be this bad. And we're seeing, at least with one guy, some positive regression. Stop me if you've heard that word before this season. So Vlad Jr., exactly how good has he been? 4 multi-hit games in the last 10. Of those 10, he's had hits in 9 of them. He had his first 3-hit game yesterday, although granted, three singles, one of them was an infield single, but they all count. They don't ask how, they ask how many. One thing that I will like to point out, only 1 home run. That was obviously the grand slam that he hit off Mackenzie Gore in the series finale, the rubber match in Washington. That's got to be better. Even when Vlad's struggling, he's got to do more than 1 home run in 10 games. I mean, this is a guy who should be hitting 30 plus every year. It's been his mantra his entire career coming up. And obviously, like even now in the majors, he's got to hit 30 plus bombs. And obviously, 1 in 10 games when you're hot, that you gotta boost those numbers. That's been the problem. He's got to hit more long balls. That's what wins you games. And if he's not going to do it, no one else in the lineup is. So Vlad's got to do it. A lot of pressure, but overall, I would still say we've had many instances in the last 2 years, year and change, about Vlad's hot streaks, and then they unfortunately haven't lasted very long. He goes back into chasing balls outside the zone, killing worms. But you got to give him credit. He has played better the last 10 games. I do have to note, though, that we have mentioned ad nauseum how unlucky Vlad's been the last 2 years, and how that even though all the projected numbers are great, that's what the actual numbers aren't so good for whatever reason. 448 BABIP in the last 10 games. So gotta it's gotta be very transparent. There has been an element of luck to this. So hopefully that's just regression. Hopefully that's just positive regression after the last 2 years of having bad luck. Maybe he's getting some fortunate bounces now. Regardless, I don't care how the Blue Jays get their bounces. They got to get them because unfortunately haven't gotten very many. But yes, good for Vlad. Hopefully this continues.
Definitely. I mean, for I think for all of us, it's the line drives. That's when we know he's starting to feel himself a little bit. Hey, sure, we want the long ball. But if he's hitting a piss missile 115 on a line, I'll take that over 120, which is probably pretty much impossible, into the ground, as you said, killing worms, as our buddy Steve loves to say. What a thing to say. I love it.
Killing worms at that point with 120 up.
Yeah. The ball would literally probably get stuck in the ground at that point.
Exactly.
But no, there's definitely a better approach for Vlad. I mean, he's hitting mistakes. I know that sounds silly, and I know that sounds like, yeah, everyone's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But when you're struggling the way he was, and the way that this whole offense was, and when you're getting on top of, or not on top of, I guess, underneath it a little bit, couple Aaron Nola breaking balls. Now, again, they were hangers. But with Aaron Nola, how good as he is, and how really, look, as much as he did allow, 4 runs over 5 2/3, he's been great this season. And he wasn't bad in that game. 5 2/3, had 7 strikeouts, didn't walk anybody. And Vladdy found the mistakes and didn't miss them. Like, that's the important part for me, is getting the mistakes, because you're going to get them, and didn't miss them. Also, I think during this streak as well, didn't he take that 96-mile-an-hour fastball in the inner half and drill a double with it off the wall? And as you mentioned, hit the grand slam. Was that
extra bases? Sorry?
Yeah, I can't remember that double that I was talking. What game was that in? Was it the Kansas game? I can't remember which one it was. But he got like 96.
No, it was. Yes. It was off the wall in Kansas. That's the one you're talking about, right? The one that scored Addison Barger after.
Yes, that one there. Yes.
The one. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, for me, that's very enticing. It's a positive sign. Now, as you mentioned, he does get a little happy at times and expands at times, but you're just hoping that when that does come, it gets limited. And that's going to show where he's at, right? If he, like you mentioned, with a little bit of luck, but then when he's not getting the luck, is he reverting back to chasing hits? And that's what Bo Bichette's been doing for me. is chasing hits. I think that's the phrase that I like to use when it comes to Bo, especially during this stretch before the one RBI hit he had yesterday, was that him chasing all these first pitches and swinging at garbage. He's chasing hits. He's not going to try and walk and get out of the slump that way. Have a good at bat.
Though, to be fair, that's never been Bo's game. That's never been Bo's game. To be fair, though,
no, it hasn't been. But the going up there and chasing the first pitch and when you're not confident and chasing bad pitches on the first pitch all the time, like popping it up, that's not him.
Yeah,
that's not him. So to see that yesterday is a positive sign. Now you do have an upcoming series against the Twins. You're going to see some pretty good starting pitching. So we'll see how this team looks there. But before we go any further,
I do want to ask you one more thing about Vlad. It's not baseball related, but did you see the post-game interview? Did you see the post-game interview?
Oh, we're going to talk about this. Okay.
Well, real quick. So for those who haven't seen it, obviously after the game yesterday, Davis Schneider was with Hazel May of Sportsnet for the post-game interview, and Vlad, with his patented dumping water on guys like he always likes to do, came out there, and Davis Schneider basically shook him off. Basically just said, no, all good, buddy, at home. And then Vlad, just because he didn't want to go out, leave empty-handed and leave on a low note, just threw the water bottle manually, didn't have to dump it on Davis Schneider, just like sprayed it on him in that motion. So yeah, what are your thoughts, man? I mean, like, just thoughts in general of that situation. I mean, we talked about how this clubhouse needs to have more fun. What's going on?
I'm trying to find the right words. I mean, fun. Let's be honest. Fun's winning, man. And this team has not done that. They're dead last in the American League East by a game and a half. They're 3 games under 500, and they are barely scraping across wins. And when they win a ball game like yesterday, it felt like a freaking miracle. Like it actually did feel like, hey, we won a ball game against a good team.
The wins feel dangerously impressive. Like it's incredible how one win feels like so too good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the fact that dumping water on guys, like for me, I look at a game at Rogers Center, right? Let's say, like, I understand Davis said just at home, and I agree. Like, what are we doing on the road? You want to fire up the fans, right? Well, Philly fans are just going to flick you off on the way out. Like, they don't care.
Especially Philly fans. Exactly. Any other fan base, maybe. Especially Philly fans.
They don't care about your feelings, Vladdy. They don't care. Jays fans, whether they care or not, they're going to love it because it's something funny. Oh, wow. You see it every damn night. Even at home, like you and me, let's say we're at a ball game. And you just watch this team go 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position, but win 2-1 on a wild pitch.
Last year against the Phillies, the game that we actually went to, they won exactly in that fashion.
Biggio in the foot.
In that fashion.
Like, what, are you going to dump Biggio? Like, did he? I can't remember what he did that night. But regardless.
Probably dump somebody. He dumped somebody. He always does.
Like, holy crap. It's just getting to a point. Like, I miss the times where, I don't know, let's say Barrios goes 8 shutout innings and you win a ball game because of that. You dump him. Or if, God forbid, one of these Blue Jays hits 2 homers in a game and propels you to a victory, you do it then. Like, you don't pick up for a guy, I went 1 for 3 and a hit by pitch that scored a run. MVP of the game. Oh, my God. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
I agree.
I don't know.
I agree.
I don't know. Look, especially on the road. Like, on the road? Really? I don't know. I agree with David Schneider. Just at home, buddy. And if you probably listened to the Bunkus pod, so you were probably talking about that today. That's what they were talking about on there.
Yes, I did hear it.
And his take was like, yeah, I'm with Schneider, and people are kind of getting tired of it. Like, and I get it because your team's been bad, and the vibes are definitely not good. And Vladdy, there's no Lourdes anymore. Who's going to be? What do you make slushies or something in the dugout?
Yeah, in the dugout, yeah.
And Teoscar firing seeds at him just to screw around with. Like, you don't have that anymore. That's not what this team is. And he's trying to keep that vibe going with everybody else, and it's just not there. So that's my take. What do you feel?
Pretty much along the same lines. I have seen a lot of takes about Vladdy. Like, when he does have a good game, he likes to be all Hollywood, likes to post and stuff. I know Steve didn't like that. We were mentioning our post-game show. I don't really feel too passionate about it. I do feel like baseball is that type of sport where, I mean, it's not an effort game. Doesn't mean you don't care when you post that, but I do feel like 162 games, the buttoned-up business like black tie approach, I don't think that really works. I think that you need to have fun. But I do think there's a line, though. I do think that, like you mentioned, that's a line that if you're doing it every game, every win, like, it just gets devalued. There's no longer an exciting thing. Like watching Vlad dump guys, all of a sudden you're at the game at Rogers Center. It's like, okay, well, take 200. You know what I mean? I've been watching this the last 3 years. You know what I mean? So I agree. I'm not a hate fun guy. I do think that baseball should be fun. I did like the home run jacket, mainly because it hasn't seemed to work taking it away. So maybe a little bias towards that. But yeah, I think it's a little bit overkill from Vlad.
Yeah. Okay. Glad we're on the same page here. Let's wrap this thing up and head over to the farm because the young fellas, I mean, there's some positive stuff. There isn't too much to talk about on there. Is the vibes are great down in the mine. There's a couple dudes to talk about, but let's see what they're up to. So as I said last week, I was doing a whole trending up, trending down stuff. Let's do the trending down first. Rip the Band-Aid off, get this thing over with. And the same guy that was trending down last time, he is still trending down. Arjun Namala hitting a $167 with an OPS of 584 in A ball. He's 18. Again, I don't want to overreact.
2005. It's nuts.
Holy, yeah, that's oh boy. I'm almost 10. Oh my god. Anyways, almost 10 years older than the kid. That's oh boy.
Crazy.
And he's gonna be a big leaguer probably someday. And here I am talking on with a freaking microphone, Rob. Like, what are we doing? Anyways, a 584 OPS for RJ. I mean, again, so young. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but a really rough start to his season. But again, kid with that talent needs a hot week, and then we're right back into it. And he's got the power. He had a home run like in his first game or first couple games.
Yeah, I remember that. Off a big league pitcher too.
Well,
I can't remember who it was. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Oh god, I can't remember who it was. But regardless, he did it. Again, young player, he'll figure it out. Alan Roden was a guy that I've been talking about a couple weeks, and he's been doing great. He's been struggling recently, though. The OPS has dropped below 800. He's hitting 231 over the last 10 games. Again, doesn't really have the power. So if the batting average ain't there, things are going to start to get dim a little bit for him. But again, it's a rough, week and a half. Things can change. But over the last 10, he's really been struggling. Now to the trending up because we need some freaking positivity. Or Elvis again. I mean, went deep, had an RBI single off of Paul Skeens. He had 941 OPS still. Like we mentioned the last pod about all these other guys that are having big league time and he's mashing AAA, and it's painful. But boy, Elvis, I think he's the one bright spot in this organization that we can just lock on.
Huge. And if you recall, like he was in that Gabriel Moreno prospect here of like guys the Blue Jays considered untouchable at that time. Obviously, Gabriel Moreno factually wasn't untouchable because they did trade him, but his prospect ranking kind of dipped a bit. Like him and Gabby were the two top prospects in this org, I believe, after the 2021 season. And then obviously Ricky Tiedemann has significantly jumped him last couple seasons. But Elvis looks like he's right back on the map. But he's a major league hitter. Like at this point, like when you're hitting 940 in AAA, like you deserve a spot on the big league roster, which is why I do think that with the way this offense is struggling and there's just so many dead roster spots, I get that the playing time thing is an issue, the positional thing is an issue. To me, they have to find a way to get him on the roster somehow. With the offense struggling this much, Jays fans just need a story. They just need something to be excited about, and obviously a prospect coming in who mashes. Like there's no guys on this team that just come up here and just have pop like the way he does. You know what I mean? Like it's been a while since we've seen legitimate slugger power. And like there have been obviously Vlad is playing better lately, and he's got he can hit a ball as hard as anybody. And Justin Turner, Davis Schneider, even Varsho, who's hit his share of bombs. Like Jason just need more power. We just need to see more power, especially from the right side. We mentioned how they need a middle of the order bat. I'm not saying Elvis can be that right away. Like we haven't seen him play a major league game yet. Who knows? Sure. Who knows what he is? But I just feel like what are you waiting for at this point? Kevin Biggio. He didn't start. Is he hurt or something? Does he have something cooking? But he didn't start back-to-back days against a righty. So like, did he? Is that?
I'm trying to look up, but he hasn't played in a little bit. I haven't noticed.
That's what I mean. So it's like at some point, like if he's hurt, like why not just put him on the IL? Like I suggested last podcast that why not just throw him on the Phantom IL and just have Elvis up. But if he's actually hurt, then there you go. You can kill two birds with one stone.
He hasn't played since the second game of the National Series. So he played that game, didn't play the finale. Obviously, the day off, didn't get an at bat in either of the two games against the Phillies. The last guy we got to talk about is a guy that I talked about last week, and I'm super stoked. Emmanuel Bonilla. I mean, this guy, boy, he's just mashing. He's played 4 games. Again, we talked about it last time, and he only played the one. but he's now played 4 games in is it like the Florida Coast League for the, again, very low in the minor leagues. He's only like 18 years old, young kid. He's hitting 500 and 500 OBP and a 1400 OPS. He's got, in 4 games, he's got 3 doubles, a triple, and a home run. He's a big kid, outfielder. Super like him. Super like him. Obviously, outfield with some pop. Sign me up any day of the week. But that's going to wrap it up for that one. Now,
one more thing we do have to mention that there's a new herd. There's a new member of the herd back in Buffalo that came up. You want to bring that up?
Madison Barger.
Aaron Sanchez. Aaron Sanchez is back. A little blast from the past for Blue Jays fans.
I wasn't going to bring it up, Rob, because I don't think we'll see him. We're getting the Joey Votto treatment again, buddy. We're doing it. Are we really going to do this again? Like I mentioned with the first week of the pod, I'm like, Joey Votto will probably never play a game with this team.
I agreed.
And we haven't heard squat since he, slipped on a bat. Right? It's like, oh, sure. Yeah.
There's another good vibes poster for the fans, just so that they can.
Teams playing like garbage. Sign a guy that they loved years ago. Sure, go for it. Minor league deal. Can't go wrong. All of a sudden, Aaron Sanchez got shoulder tightness. Done. I mean, hey, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he starts tomorrow for Buffalo and everything goes swimmingly and everything goes great for him. I think it's good vibes sort of thing. Because why else would you?
I don't think we see him. I don't think we see him at the big league level.
No. If you do, there's an issue. If you do, there's a really big issue with this team, and we're already seeing the depth of this team getting tested. Because Alek Manoah is getting another start this weekend. And that's where we're going to go next as we preview the weekend set against the Minnesota Twins at Rogers Center. Last time we saw the Twinkies, we were gone in 2 games in Minnesota in the Wild Card Series. And Jose Barrios was yanked out of the game and all that swell stuff that we're not going to relive. So let's talk about it, Rob. The series goes as so. Joe Ryan versus Kikuchi tomorrow night on Friday. Former Blue Jay Simeon Woods Richardson, who has been very good to start this season for the Twins.
Yep.
He goes on the mound against Kevin Gausman.
Kevin Gausman against the Twins.
I'm very intrigued to see how that one goes. And the finale, Bailey Ober, who I believe dominates the Blue Jays for his career. I could be wrong. Versus Alek Manoah. So there are so many storylines to this weekend. Can the Blue Jays wake up their offense and build off of that 5-3 win against the Phillies and go out there in game 1 and maybe beat another good pitcher in Joe Ryan and win a ball game, win back-to-back, and have your offense not be painful for 2 straight. And then game 2, you got former Blue Jay farmhand versus the guy who's typically been owned by the Minnesota Twins. And the finale, regardless, I mean, it writes itself. Alek Manoah gets the ball on the mound. That's all I need to hear. So, Rob, what are you looking for in this series, bud? Because there's tons.
I mean, how's the weather looking like? Can we see the first open air baseball at home this year? Because that would be the most exciting thing. No, I'm joking.
Weather. Well, now I want to look it up now.
Exactly. Anyway, you can look it up. But yeah, I don't know. Like you mentioned,
No, Rob, it's
not going to happen.
Right. High of 15, cloudy on Friday. High of 14, cloudy on Saturday. High of 17, cloudy on Sunday. Terrible.
Yeah, never mind then. We don't have that to look forward to. But I do think it should be a pretty, like you mentioned, compelling series. Just like tomorrow, that's a great pitching matchup. Yusei Kikuchi against Joe Ryan, 2 very good pitchers. Obviously, last time Yusei Kikuchi pitched against the Twins, it was the infamous substitution for Jose Barrios. So we get to relitigate that. Jays can get their revenge 7 months later after they got knocked out by the Twins in the postseason last year. That'll be pretty cool. And I think Saturday is going to be a really fun game because you have Simeon Woods Richardson, obviously traded for Jose Barrios, like you mentioned, 3 years ago. And now he's looking like he could be something. I'm not sure if Austin Martin got sent down or not. Not sure if he'll be up.
He is on the roster still.
He's still on the team. Okay.
Back in the big league days ago, that's all I got.
Yeah, so we might see him against Kevin Gausman. That's great. And obviously, I think Alek Manoah, that's going to be a tough one. The Minnesota Twins have done great against right-handed pitching all season long. They're a red-hot team in general. I know they lost yesterday. Did they lose yesterday?
No, they've won 2 in a row. They beat the crap out of the Mariners.
Yes. They lost one of the games to the Mariners, yes. And that's going to be fun because this is going to be a good team. This is a stretch where the Blue Jays, you kind of have to hold your own because we mentioned how the end of this month, what it looks like. The White Sox, the Tigers, this stretch where you had the 2 against Philly, Twins, Orioles, Rays. If you can kind of hold your own and you go 5-4 in that stretch, I know that's probably a lot to ask. That would mean they have to win 2 series or sweep 1. That seems like a tall task for this Blue Jays team against all these good teams.
Yeah.
But if you do that, all of a sudden you're rewarded with a lot of games against bad teams, and that's a real big chance for the Blue Jays to get right back into this. Right now, 17-20 is their record. It's not disastrous. 4.5 games. It's a bad start, no question about it. But it's not a disastrous start. However, you go 3-6, you lose all 3 series, and all of a sudden you're talking about, like this is looking really dark early. And you really need to reel off a ton of wins against those bad teams just to stay relevant, and even if they did that, I mean, you're just sitting above water because you're beating up on the bad teams. Like there's nothing really redeemable about it. So I think it's a massive series. They're going to be facing good pitching. The matchups that really aren't favorable for them. Like Joe Ryan's a good pitcher. Kevin Gausman, his struggles. Alek Manoah. Like this is a tough series. This is a series that the Blue Jays are just obviously they're not going to be favored, and the Twins profile is the better team. But if you find a way to win this series, then you can get some good juju back on your side because this is going to be a tough one. No doubt.
That's been the story of the Blue Jays the last 2 years. Find a way to win. I mean, somehow find a way to win. And you mentioned that.
It usually includes starter going 7 innings, giving up a run, and then the other team kind of throwing up on themselves a little bit. Just enough.
Sign me up for that, buddy. Sign me up for that. But you mentioned throwing up on yourself. The teams that they will be playing. I know the Tigers have been playing better recently, and I get it, but they're now falling down. They're just a game over 500 after leading the division at one point. You mentioned that soft spot to the schedule at the end of the month. You got White Sox for 3 in Rogers Center. Tigers for 4 in Detroit. We'll be at 2 of the games. I believe
those games.
Saturday and Sunday games. White Sox in Chicago for 3. Pirates at home for 3. Like you mentioned, tread water in this stretch of games. Like you said, go 5-4. You'd love to go 6-3, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. You go 6-3, you're 500 going into that stretch.
And then you get hot. And then you got to get red hot.
Oh, and it's the offense, Rob. Your pitching is going to keep you in games. Like it just is. And you need to find a way to get the bats going. But God, we've been saying that for a year and almost a month and a half now, and it's just not. So can they build off of those good approaches in Philly? We'll see. Starting tomorrow night, 7:07 first pitch at Rogers Center. Yusei Kikuchi gets the ball for the Blue Jays. Going up against Joe Ryan of the Minnesota Twins in Game 1. Rob, appreciate you, buddy, as always. It's been a blast. And hey, maybe we'll come on Sunday. Actually, we'll be on. Yeah, we'll probably be on
Sunday, right after an Alek Manoah start.
Oh boy. Well, I pray to God we got positive stuff to talk about because it could go 2 totally different ways.
I'll be honest. It could go sideways, but we hope. That's what we do as Jays fans. We have hope. We gotta have hope.
Whether you're listening or watching on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all that great stuff. Like, follow, share to all your friends, do all that great stuff as always so we can grow the page and all that stuff. Rob, appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Hopefully positive vibes. Go Jays.
Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.